In this video, we're going to be forgot to delete him. We're going to be going through and replacing all of our current animations and the meshes and everything like that, with the exception of the third-person character. Now, the reason we're doing this, I explained it in a previous video that wasn't a part of this series, but it was regarding Blender, and it was my own stupidity on that one. So I'm going to just kind of take my time and step you through both the deleting and the importing of all of the new animations and such. So first, go ahead and download them. There'll be a link in the description for a RAR file. I think it's going to be a Google Drive link because my Dropbox is full because of the Not Stern Totem map. And it'll be called, I don't know, I'll just give it a name of, I guess, Asset Overhaul FPS, something like that. Anyways, download it, extract it. You'll have a folder called New Everything because I'm an idiot. Open it up, and we'll have 3 folders, one for the 1911, the arms, and the M1 Carbine. Now I've also added quite a few different animations as well on top of this. So when I have, for like the example in the M1 Carbine, we have aimed on sights for walking, we have a walk, we have a run, we have our reloading whenever we're actually empty, and just a reload when we're just changing magazines. So let's go ahead and start deleting crap. First things first, I want to go ahead and just get rid of some references in the blueprint class. I'm going to go to player, our Nazi zombie character. Over here for the starting weapon class, I'm just going to revert that back to none. Mesh first person, I'm just going to go back to default, and none for you. File save. And now let's go to, I guess let's start with the weapons. We're going to go to weapons, 1911. We can leave the blueprint class. I need to delete that folder, that's just an empty folder, so it doesn't screw with me. Go to mesh, actually go to animations, select them all, and force delete. Well, actually just force delete. Let's go to the mesh, same exact thing, delete it all. Okay, let's do the same thing for the M1 Carbine. You're going to have less animations. These are after I've already imported everything and tested to make sure everything looks okay. And delete everything. Actually, everything except for the material. I meant to do that for the 1911, but like the folder says, my stupidity. So that's gone. And I can't remember if I imported the string conveyor in a previous video, but same thing. Just get rid of it, because I don't have any animations or stuff made for this yet. Next, we're going to go up to the arms. So character, FPS, animations, 1911. Scrap all of it. Again, there's going to be more animations here because I was testing. Right, same thing for the M1 Carbine. Go to the arms, delete the arms as well as the animation blueprint. And I think that's everything. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead, that's the other folder, is we're going to import the arms. So I have my arms here. I want to drag and drop my FPS arms. Let's see, do I have a material made? Yes. So I'm just going to drag and drop and do not create materials. And make sure import textures is on. Actually, no, there are no textures. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and add the textures. So they're right here. So I have my arms, clothes, and gloves. I think this one's gloves. Yep. And then clothing. And save. And now we have the arms with correct scaling. Now let's go to the animations, 1911. 1911 arm animations. Drag and drop all these suckers in there. And for the FPS arm skeleton, Don't change anything. Scale set to 1 and import all. M1 Carbine, same exact thing. Oh, I forgot to hit import all. Okay. Let's go to the weapon animations. So let's scroll down to our weapons. Click the M1 Carbine, animations. Drag those M1 Carbine animations in there and select the M1 Carbine skeleton. I haven't actually imported the M1 Carbine, so that's going to be difficult to do. So let's drag out the M1 Carbine. Go ahead and import that. See the scaling and everything's the same, set to 1. Now we import the animations. Selecting the M1 Carbine skeleton. You can ignore that. And we'll do the same thing for the 1911. This one's going to take a bit because it's going to have the, I'm actually going to set it yes to create materials and hit import because the materials for this gun are already baked into it. So just going to let it do its thing. I'm recording, aren't I? Yeah. There we go. I'm going to drag all of this stuff into the mesh. I'm going to reorganize the folders just a bit, and of course it will. Let's just press yes and see. Okay. All right, I'm just going to flat out do a fresh reimport then in the correct location. I think it's because it's probably because I had it referenced in the blueprint. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I'm going to drag and drop again, just reimport under the mesh folder. Then I'm just going to create a new folder and call it textures and throw that stuff in there. Keep it a little bit cleaner. Okay, new folder, textures. Then just drag the materials and textures in, and we're good. Going back to the 1911, let's go to animations and drag in the weapon animations, choosing the 1911 skeleton. The same thing, ignore that error or warning. I want to go back to the M1 Carbine. I want to make a new folder, call it mesh. It's probably not going to let me drag it in there. Oh, no, it does. I'm going to take this textures folder and drag it in. Ah, crap, wrong one. Textures folder and put it in the mesh folder. Wait, did I drag both? Oh, I'm an idiot. Drag the mesh and material into the mesh folder. I don't know what I goofed. And just take the material, put it in the textures. That way it's following the same folder structure. So now we have all that good to go. I have not done the Strimgrave area yet, so that would be done in a different video. But now let's go ahead and reset up these blueprints. So starting with the 1911, let's go to the blueprint, viewport, weapon mesh, 1911. And we need to set up the material. So let's go to mesh, textures, and open the material. There's an error, so just delete those 3. We're going to drag 3 textures into the material. So here's the normal, here's the base color, and here's the roughness. So let me sort these out real quick and I'll show you what I mean. Oops. So the base color, RGB to base color, roughness, RGB to roughness, and normal, RGB to normal. And you're simply going to hit save and it'll apply everything. What's this? All right, so now it's textured and we can go to the directory here, and we have the fire animation. So 1911 fire for the fire animation. And reload, we have two different reloads. We're just going to do the normal reload for now because we haven't set up the multi kind of setup for the reloading. And eventually we're going to be moving this stuff to a montage. So that way we're only going to have one kind of source for the animations that'll all be handled inside the montage, like we did with the arms. So our 1911 setup, close it, and let's go to our M1 Carbine. Viewport, weapon mesh, M1 Carbine. I need to set the texture up on this one as well, but it's already pretty much done. So we're going to open mesh for the material, type in M1, we'll have the material for the M1 Carbine, like so. Also, some minor changes have been changed to the rigging, as well as things like empty casings. I've gotten rid of all those that really things that aren't going to be needed because we're going to be going a different route than I initially thought with them. And now I can go to the blueprint and select the animations. So I'm just going to type in M1. So type in M1 Carbine, scroll down, we'll have M1 Carbine underscore fire, and same thing for the reload. M1 Carbine, reload. Compile and save. And now let's go up back to our arms, and we need to create the animation montages as well as the animation blueprint. So I think I'm going to start on the animation blueprint. So FPS, arms, right click, animation, animation blueprint, and select the FPS arm skeleton. Let's call this one animBP underscore FPS arms. Open her on up. We're going to focus on the event graph for now. So we need to do a couple of things. I'm going to drag it pawn owner up. Right click, create a new event. So it's going to be begin play. And we're going to take this pawn owner. We're going to cast it to Nazi zombie character. And if that cast is successful, we're going to store it in a variable called character. That character is going to have a type of Nazi zombie character. We're pretty much just resetting this up. So now that that's good, we're going to drag off from character. Going to do a get, and we're going to do a valid check first. Then we're going to create another variable, call it is aiming, and another one and call it current weapon ID. So is aiming is going to be a boolean, and current weapon ID, we just search for weapon ID, and we'll have an enum for eWeapon ID that we created a while ago, and we just need to set those. So dragging out with the character, let's check it for aiming. So if we just search for aiming, we're going to have get is aiming as a function that we made, and simply set that. Then after that, we want to get the current weapon ID. So we're going to do off the character, current weapon. I'm going to actually break this and copy and paste this over just to clean it up. And we're going to do a valid check on the weapon. If it's valid, we're going to get the ID. So weapon ID. We have a function called getWeaponID that we made, and use that to set our enum, like so. Compile and save. So up next, I want to go ahead and add, we're going to be creating a blend space, so I'll do that separately actually. We're going to go to the animation graph. We're going to right click, do search for weapon ID. At the top, you'll have blend poses by enum for eWeapon ID. Drag that out. We're going to get the current weapon ID variable and plug that right on in. And we're going to right click, add pin for element called 1911. So we're going to start with that first. So let's create a new state machine. Let's call it 1911 and plug it in. Opening up the 1911 state machine, we're going to drag off, add a state. Call this one Um, hip. Yeah, let's just call it hip. Or drag off again and type in, call this one ADS. I'll show you why here in a bit. So the condition to go from hip to ADS is going to be is aiming. And the condition to return is going to be is not aiming. So get is aiming, perform a not boolean, and connect. So let's save that. Yeah, so we're going to be creating some blend spaces, but first let's actually set up, let's actually set up the blend spaces first. So let's go to our animations under our FPS arms, 1911, right click, blend space 1D. So we have our FPS arm skeleton. I want to do BS for blend space underscore FPS arms underscore 1911. Open it up, details, and for the first animation, let's do the hip idle, middle animation, hip walk, ending being hip run. So you can see it like so, and we're gonna, on the horizontal axis, give it a name of speed, and we're gonna have this from a range of 0 to 600. All right, now we have that set up. Let's do the M1 Carbine. Actually, I want to straight up copy the 1911 blend space and paste it in the M1 Carbine and rename it. Open it up, we're gonna swap the animation, so delete, delete, delete. We're gonna have the M1 Carbine hip idle, M1 Carbine walk, and M1 Carbine run, and save. Probably could have renamed those better, like hip run, hip walk. That's my fault again. Okay, now that we have those blend spaces set up, let's go to our animation blueprint. Open the 1911, open the hip. We're gonna drag out the blend space for the 1911 and connect it. We're gonna create another variable called speed, and it's gonna be a float, and plug it in. Okay, now from here, we actually have another blend space that we need to make for the 1911. I want to right click, animation, blend space 1D again. So I'm just going to copy this one again. I don't know why I don't think of it. 1911, do FPS arms, ADS, and rename this one to FPS arms, hip. So open the ADS, get rid of all three. We're going to have a range of 0 to 300. And the first one's going to be the ADS idle. The second one's going to be the ADS walk, all the way at the very end. And we're going to save it. I cannot seem to grab that green dot now. Cool. There we go. Then we have our idle. Then we have it for when we're walking to give it some shake. So now back to this graph thingy. We're going to copy, well, we're just going to go to our ADS, drag the new blend space for the aim down sights into there and connect speed. Compile and save. And we can go ahead and actually just for now plug this in so we can see it. Now we need to get our speed variable. So currently it's going to be at 0. So off a character, I want to do get movement and search for get movement component. Search for velocity. We're going to get the velocity. Drag off of that. We're going to get the length. So vector length and set the speed to that. So let's clean this up. Like so, and then we have our speed set. Now I'm just going to give it a try. So I'm going to go blueprint classes, player, Nazi zombie character, set the mesh to FPS arms, and same thing for the animation blueprint. And I'm going to save real quick just in case, and move. So, over idle, over ADS. Can't tell if the ADS is, okay, so our blend space are not working with our speed. So let's print out this value. So I'm going to do a print string, just see what it says. Okay, it's not even getting to it. Ah, that's because get weapon ID is invalid. So let's click the portion here, and we're going to set the weapon to the 1911. There we go. So now we have our running, our ADS walk, which granted we're going way too fast. We need to set up a sprint and a crouch and all that kind of stuff system. But the animations are playing as intended. We just got to make sure once the animations are set up, I'm going to create a socket and we'll set it up like we had before, and we'll attach everything up so everything is a-okay and good to go. So actually we can ask it. Close this guy down. Everything there is good. Next up, we need to do the state for the M1 Carbine. I want to copy and paste you, call it M1 Carbine. Oops. Let's right click, add the pin for the M1 Carbine, and connect it up. Open this guy up. We're going to grab the blend space for the M1 Carbine, link it up, and now we need to create the one for the aim down sights. So back here to FPS, Animations, M1 Carbine. Let's copy the current blend space and rename it to FPS Arms ADS and FPS Arms Hip. So let's open the ADS, delete the animations, change the maximum to 300, and drag out the ADS idle at the start and ADS walk at the very end. And then hit save. Back in the animation blueprint, we're going to go to our ADS, grab the new blend space, so the ADS blend space we just made, and link it up. So now that that's good, let's go ahead and confirm that it's working. You know, I'm positive it's fine. Running, aim walking. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we have this set up. Now we need the montages. So that'll be for things like our firing. So let's create those. Go to our FPS, animations, and we'll start on the 1911. Right click, animation, animation montage, and choose the FPS arms. I'm going to call this one AM underscore FPS arms underscore 1911. Open this guy up, go to the asset browser. We're going to grab the ADS fire animation for the 1911, drag it in, the hip fire, the reload, and the reload empty. So now we need to add the slots. So up here, we're going to right click, section. Create a new one, call it fire ADS. Just going to move it kind of towards the beginning. Fire hip, reload, and reload empty. So reload empty is going to be here. I want to delete the default. So fire ADS is for ADS fire. Hip fire goes to fire hip. reload goes to reload, and reload empty goes to reload empty. Then we can hit save, and I'm going to change the blend time to blending in to point. I'm just going to change them both to 0.1, and that'll be our kind of our base value, and we can tweak it later on if we need to, which we probably will. So you're playing there, you're playing there, you're playing, we're good. We're going to go to montage sections and hit clear and save. So that way none of them are linked, so when it plays one, it's going to stop. And we can close that down. I'm going to copy it, then go to the M1 Carbine and paste it. Now let's rename 1911 to M1 Carbine. Are you tired of doing this as I am yet? And let's start with the reload, I guess. So delete the reload empty, find the M1 Carbine, reload empty, plug it in. Grab the normal reload, same thing, drop it in. We're gonna have to reorganize this afterwards. Grab the hip fire, drop in the hip fire, delete the ADS fire, drag in the ADS fire. Now we need to drag the ADS fire to the beginning, the fire hip, or the hip fire to the second slot, and reload to the third. And then just reorganize these. So reload empty goes right at the start of there. And these are all good to go. And hit save. Just gonna double, yeah, that's already good. Hit clear, and we're done. Now, back in our animation blueprint again, we're gonna right click and search for slot. We're gonna have slot, default slot under the montage section. Plug it on in. Compile and save. And next, we're gonna have to set up the weapons. So the variable we created just using the correct montages. So starting with the 1911, open up the blueprint. I want to open up the M1 carbines as well. So with the 1911 FPS arms montage, it's going to be FPS arms 1911 for the animation montage. Compile save. Same thing for the M1 carbine. Select the M1 carbines one. Compile save. Close and close. Oops, I want to do a save all. And now we need to attach the gun to a socket on the hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our character, FPS arms, open the skeleton tree, scroll down to the weapon grip. I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna add a socket, and I cannot remember what the socket was called, so let me look. I think it was character base. Attach weapon, S_weapon socket, and rename it to that, and hit save. So now, let's check it out. So we have the gun in our hands. We go to sprinting. We can fire. We can aim down sights and fire. We have the walking when we're moving. We have our reload. And we need to set it up. I'm going to check with the other reload as well. So in order to do that, I'm just going to open up the M1 carbine, change reload animation to reload empty, and go to the FPS Animations, the animation montage for the carbine, and just swap these around between reload empty and reload. Hit save, and look at it. So reload. Okay, that's working. I want to revert these back over. Set that starting point, save it, close it, and revert this back to just reload. And close that down. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the 1911. So open up the 1911 montage, open up the 1911 blueprint, and open up our character blueprint. Change this to BP 1911. Choose the 1911 reload empty, and swap the reload animations around. And hit save. So We have our walking aimed on sights. We have our running. We have our walking that you can't quite see because of our speed, but we have shooting. We need to do the weapon or the muzzle socket as well. And we have our reload. So we have the reload for empty. That's working. Let's flip these around one more time. Vent the chest with the normal reload first. And let's reload. And that's working. Cool. So now we need to do the socket for the weapon on the muzzles. So go ahead and just minimize all that back down. Go to weapons, 1911, mesh, skeleton. We're gonna go to muzzle, and here's where we're gonna create the socket. So I can't remember what this was called either. I'm gonna go to Nazi zombie, usables, weapons, or weapon base, I think. Muzzle socket, duh. So click on the muzzle, we're gonna right click, add a socket, name it muzzle socket, which it actually already was. I guess that was the default. We'll go to the M1 Carbine, skeleton, do the exact same thing. Paste it, and save. So let's make sure the line trace comes out. Okay, it's following the muzzle, but the rotation's off. So opening the skeleton for the M1 Carbine as well as the 1911, because we're probably going to do it to the other one too. Let's look at the muzzle socket, and I'll grab it, rotate it by 90 degrees so it's pointing straight out. Save it. Same thing for one carbine. 90 degrees. And save. So now, wherever I shoot, it should hit. So I aim at that lamp. I pretty much hit the lamp. So let's check the M1 carbine. Make sure that's shooting straight. And I think we're about ready to call it. Well, end the video. So, yeah. I'm hitting where I'm aiming. So that's a good thing. We obviously are going to have to do some things for the animations and all that kind of stuff. I think it's transitioning pretty well. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So we're good to hit save all, and that's the end. So now we should have everything regarding scale set up correctly. We should have our arms back in place, all of our animations, including extras. And ultimately, we should just be pretty much good to go like we were before, but with everything scaled and imported properly. So now we're good. In the next video, I think we're going to convert the animations over to animation montages for the weapons, so that way we can just kind of choose a little bit easier. So I will see you then.